would agree with what I just said right there. Lee Elberson. Wait till you see Lee Elberson, Cindy, in Louisiana. Your son is looking quite dapper this afternoon. You got a fairly fresh haircut.
Yeah, my wife gave me this haircut, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Alex did a good job.
Yeah.
She's you married a talented woman.
I did, and
I always try to make sure I compliment our guests' better halves.
You do a great job of that. Alex loves your show. Like I said, she's going to come pass by the studio later.
Looking forward to seeing you, Alex.
Yeah, I think my mom, the two co-chairs are going to have a discussion. They might ask if you want to be on the committee.
Oh!
You compliment me so much, man. I don't know.
You know I'm a fan of you. I like
Appreciate it, Jerry.
He crowdsourced some topics today. So we're going to have a crowdsourced episode of the I Love CVille show. Anything goes when Elberson's in the house. Catherine D'Souza, hello, and welcome to the program. She loves Lee Elberson. Brian Green, hello. Mary Beth Winslow, hello, hello, hello. Brandon Peck, hello, and welcome to the program. Give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching, and if you want to participate in the discussion, just relay it in the comment section, and we will mention your comments live on air here on the I Love CVille show. This guy, A+ people, he likes squash, he likes a good diet, he likes entrepreneurship, he likes his better half, loves his better half, education, loves playing cards.
Oh yes.
Likes probabilities. Likes to take risks as long as those risks are in his favor. We're going to have a good time with Mr. Elberson here. J-Dubs, we can rock and roll when you're ready, baby. Good Wednesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you so much for joining us on a glorious day to be alive. Genuinely, I have a tremendous zest for life, and my favorite aspect of what I do from a professional standpoint, my family is my favorite aspect from an overall standpoint, but from a professional standpoint is this show. And I've been looking forward to the Wednesday edition of the I Love CVille show because the renaissance and the kind and the empathetic and the visionary and the risk-taking Lee Elberson is our guest today. And I see the co-chair of the Lee Elberson fan club, Cindy, is watching in Louisiana. I see our friends in California are on the feed, an influence of Lee Elberson. And I see some folks that are watching in Northern Virginia, in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and South Carolina. If you'd like to participate in today's discussion, you can put your comments in the feed, and we will discuss your topics on a crowdsourced version of the I Love CVille show that is airing on every social media platform known to mankind. Judah Wickhauer is our fabulous director. We don't have the Judah cam anymore? Can you just run over here and show your handsome face on the screen? No? we love Judah Wickhauer, our director, 10 years of working together. All right, we'll think about how we're going to execute that later. If we can go to the studio cam and welcome the scarf-wearing, very dapper, purple on purple. He looks good. Lee Elberson. Judah, doesn't he look good? Great. It looks great. Lee Elberson, good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon. Appreciate both of you having me on the show.
We love having Lee Elberson on the program. So I want to, hi Jerry, hi Lee from Cindy. Hi Cindy, we love you Cindy. This is what we want to do. We will take crowdsourced topics on the program. Before we take crowdsourced topics, we'll ask one of the smartest people we know, what has been tickling the brain of late, Lee Elberson?
Awesome. I love the format of this show.
Yeah?
It's a great format.
I adapt to you.
I really appreciate everything you do, and you've been coming up much more frequently in my YouTube feed.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't catch the full show yesterday, but honestly, every time I tune in, when Alex Erpy's on, I mean, that guy's just
smart dude.
Smart dude, and his explanations are just so well thought out. So I love watching him on the show.
That's good. Alex is A+ people. In fact, I'll tag Alex and say Lee Elberson is giving you some props right now. So, my friend, first topic du jour, what do you got?
Well, I usually like to start off with some personal stuff. So, Last night, my lovely wife and I were playing board games.
Which ones?
We played one of our favorite board games, which is called Splendor. Great game about probabilities and collecting resources and using them. Be a good game to introduce your son to when he's ready.
Okay.
And then she suggested, hey, let's play Pandemic. Have you ever heard of the board game
No.
Pandemic? Okay. So
is it too soon for a board game?
Okay, no, it's a really popular board game. It came out, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
Very wildly popular. And we decided to play, and I realized after playing that it would be a great game for everyone to play as we're in a pandemic, because it's a cooperative game. You have to work together to develop a cure for these diseases around the world and try to eradicate them. And, I just couldn't help but think, maybe I'm very idealistic and I know I love board games, but if everybody did this, maybe there'd be this thought that, hey, actually, we're not against each other here. We're all actually trying to work together to get over this. And I think, sometimes you watch what happens in the news cycle and you feel like it's very...
If it bleeds, it leads.
It's very divisive, and we're sort of fighting each other and just trying to realize that we're trying to work together. So game recommendation, Pandemic is very fun, and human recommendation, let's try to be more empathetic to each other and work together.
I like that. He's always preaching the empathy. Evelyn Tejada from Miami, Florida, hello. Blake, our homie from California, says, props. What up, dog?
As always, Blake sent some amazing comments to discuss.
I can't wait to get to those comments. Blake and Evelyn. And in fact, we have 4 states watching the program. I think we have the Judah cam ready to go. Judah, can we put you on screen over here and show the bearded, brilliant man that you are? Judah Wickhauer is about to be on screen. Wave to the 4 states. Oh, the thumbs up from Judah Wickhauer. Hello. All right, let's talk the new variant. So the positive news, Pfizer, if you triple shot Pfizer, you're super protected from, is it Omicron, Judah?
Omicron.
15th
letter of the Greek alphabet.
Look at that. Judah, you knew that the other day too, right? Omicron. You're super protected from Omicron if you triple shot Pfizer. That was the news today from Pfizer and BioNTech. Your thoughts on the new variant that is putting some fear, it's rebounded in the markets, has closed travel to places like South Africa, and is starting to weave its way stateside here in the U.S. Omicron, Lee Everson.
That's great. That's one of the topics my mom asked me to cover. When I asked her what to cover, she just laid out light things like, cover the economy, Omicron, and the MCU. And I was like Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm thinking, gosh, Mom, that's a lot for one show. But
that is a lot. I like it, Cindy.
So anyway, I did, as I always do when somebody asks me to do something, I did some research, and the Omicron variant, the cause for concern is that it's highly transmissible.
Sure. Which we heard with the Delta variant.
Yeah. It's more contagious than Delta, at least early studies show, but it doesn't lead to more severe COVID-19 cases or symptoms. And so I think there's a silver lining to it. And so I think it's definitely more of a need to get vaccinated. I got my booster last Friday. But as I try to do when I'm making a medical decision, I like to search what I don't usually search for and get from sources I don't usually search for, which means, when it's coming to vaccines, I'm thinking, what would anti-vax community say, and what would perhaps more conservative news sources say about getting triple vaccinated? And I think,
what would they say?
Well, it's I think the sentiment is that we are overblowing the effects of COVID-19 on our population and the people. It's not as big of a deal as we're making it out to be. I stop and I always want to reflect and think, is that possibly the case? Is it the case that we are, I don't think that doctors are lying, but is it possible that if somebody passes away, you can't 100% attribute it to COVID-19, but it ends up in the COVID-19 tick box because maybe they got it and it exacerbated some of their symptoms? Sure. But I think a great way to reflect is something I always learned about. They call it the mess hall mentality in the military. They don't ever give you instructions about what to do with the mess, how to get to the mess hall. There's no manual, and they don't do that because it's pretty easy. You just stop and you look around and you see what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is walking one way, you're going to walk that way because everyone sort of is doing it together. And so if we take that perspective, look and say, hey, is the U.S. overblowing it? Are we the only ones doing this? We're not. In fact, many countries are hoping that they can get their vaccination rates to us. We have a lot more vaccines than some of the more under-resourced countries. And so I think that helps me, gives me perspective that we are doing the right thing by continuing to encourage people to get vaccinated. And there are going to continue to be variants as long as we have a majority of the global population unvaccinated.
I want to talk about this topic here. Lee Elberson, our guest, CEO, Claiborne Education. I offer the title and the name for those that are streaming on Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts in their car and don't have a visual element. Lee Elberson's one of our favorite guests here on the I Love CVille Network. Joseph Biden is the president of the United States.
I heard that. I don't know. Depends on the news source you read. That could be contested, I guess.
President Joe Biden said recently, in the last couple weeks, that the vaccine should be ubiquitous, given to everyone, and essentially the world's public utility. What are your thoughts on that? And that's the entry point, because I'm going to dig deep into this topic here. Joseph Biden, President of the U.S., basically saying the vaccine should be a public utility and be readily available for everyone in the globe. Your thoughts?
Readily available? Yes. I don't know about the follow-up questions. How are we going to share funding it, and how's that going to get distributed? But available? Yes. Mandate? For everyone in the entire world, he doesn't
have that reach.
Yeah. We don't have that reach. But if every country in the world agreed to do it, you hope you have perspectives to say, hey, every other country is thinking this is a good idea. Is it possible that we are the one outlier? Are we the small percentage that actually knows what's going on?
My concern, okay, and folks that watch this program know, A, I'm running for office locally, and B, they ask, what party are you most affiliated with? My response to that has been the party of common sense, okay? As I've said, and you know where I'm going to go here, socially liberal, fiscally conservative. Yeah, he can do it verbatim. My concern with making medical innovation a public utility would possibly diminish the innovation and financial resources allocated by publicly traded companies to said innovation. So if you're starting to give away their IP and you're starting to give away the research, the R&D, the products that they created, why would they continue to double down and triple down and quadruple down innovation and keep working to figure out a cure or a vaccination for a crappy situation? When you start making, so I'm torn on this, and this is why I'm torn on this, and I'm going to get out of your way because I'm very curious of your opinion. So I am self-employed. This gentleman, who's the director, works for someone who's self-employed. And healthcare is astronomically expensive. And the self-employed entrepreneur of me says, I see the value of healthcare for everyone. But then that same entrepreneurial mindset says, if healthcare is happening for everyone, that will lead to watered down, diminished healthcare because the folks providing said care don't have a reason to provide that care if it's a utility. Out of your way, anywhere you want to go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert on this, and I think this is a sufficiently nuanced subject that I'll try to keep it in broad strokes. I think making it a public utility I think what the President of the United States is hoping is that it can be readily available to everyone. I don't think that necessarily means that Pfizer and Moderna have to share their formula for their specific vaccine. I think it's important to keep in mind that especially the mRNA vaccines aren't that much different. They're based on the same science. The science published in peer-reviewed journals is readily available. Now, how they're able, big drug companies are able to manufacture and produce it, that might be where their like quote unquote secret sauce is. So I don't think that there's any danger in making it like easily available in terms of them losing their intellectual property. Now, in terms of them losing profit margins, if you're trying to negotiate contracts to make it affordable for everyone, then I think then you might have a point. They're not going to, if it's not their cash cow, they're probably not going to allocate many research and development dollars to improve that, unless they can improve it substantially so. And if they can't substantially improve it, then maybe it's good enough, right? It's 90, if it's like, I guess like right now, let's say, I think Moderna, if you have 2 vaccinations, I think it's 93% effective. How much more research do you have to get it to 95 or 98? You might be at the point of diminishing returns. So,
I think you are at the point of diminishing returns.
Yeah, now that doesn't, like, if you're now trying to encompass the variants, then if the variants come out and the vaccines aren't effective, then it does make sense because they do need a vaccine that is effective to them. So I think that's their driving force, is then the vaccines are no longer relevant, right? It's like, hey, Jerry, I'm going to sell you a calling card, right? You might have bought it 20 years ago, but it's just not going to be effective now. And so if they're selling a product that's no longer effective, it's up to them to innovate and come up with something effective.
Lee Albertson, our guest, CEO of Claiborne Education. How concerned are you of COVID now? I'm boosted. I got the Pfizer booster. I did it on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall with the pop-up booster event that they do on Mondays. Literally took me, for those that are watching, less than 5 minutes. My wife registered me online. I had to respond to a text message survey that took 15 seconds. And then I went there 1 minute before my 1:30 appointment, had a needle in my arm at 1:32. And then they said, if you're feeling dizzy, hang out for 15 minutes. I wasn't. By 1:34, I was gone. It took me 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Legitimately. Are you worried of COVID-19?
No. Real quick, I'll make a plug for Blue Ridge Health District.
Yeah, I think
Blue Ridge Health District has done a great job. Alex and I, when we went to get our booster on Friday, from the time we walked in the door to the time that we were getting the needle in our arm was probably minutes, and then we waited 15 minutes. They also do COVID testing. It's a great resource for anything you need. I'm less worried now. I'm less worried. I think
I agree.
The concern I have now is the vaccine hesitant or anti-vax, if that is going to increase the probability that it's going to be transmissible to me, then I wonder what public service we can do to help pull those people over the line. I don't have any hesitation. My only hesitation when getting the booster is like, oh, should I do a cross, like a different?
Yeah, I went Johnson & Johnson to Pfizer.
Yeah, I stayed with Moderna. From the research I did, there's not any notable difference, especially if you had Moderna. So anyway, I don't have any personal concerns. Alex and I are getting ready to travel to California in a couple weeks.
Gonna see our boy Blake.
Gonna definitely see our boy Blake. Gonna see Gonna see Darren Pashota.
Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna have a good time seeing all the I Love CVille fans. I'm thinking maybe you should send them a shirt.
Oh,
Once they send in, I'm thinking they deserve an I Love CVille
Blake
shirt.
Blake Hawthorne certainly does. So here's Blake Hawthorne's comment. He's watching in San Fran. He says, first, Blake Hawthorne wants to emphasize that the Moderna triple shot is the way to go. It has better ROI. In fact, I'll read it verbatim. Blake Hawthorne in Cali says the triple Moderna has a significantly higher resistance according to the data. BH also says healthcare. BH is an opinionated guy, right? Mm-hmm. I'd say that's safe.
Definitely.
Okay.
Smart dude.
I like your opinions, BH. Healthcare costs and a lack of proper care gut the richest nation on the earth is in a word pathetic. The talking points against expanding healthcare and cutting costs come from the same places that arguments against climate change are originated.
Blake's always got a lot to unpack. In terms of scoping this, I say we circle back to healthcare. Let's come back to local for a second.
Okay, let's go local, sure.
A lot of thoughts about local. By the way, I also loved your show with Mark White, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name.
Russ from the Boardside, general manager.
I didn't know about the Winter Wonderland.
It's fantastic.
Cool. And so it's at Boardside? You just go and park and...
Boardside Resort, lights everywhere.
Can't wait to go. Yeah. Super excited about that.
Get the link on screen if you can. Families that are looking for an event. And Noelle, thank you for sharing, your assistant.
Yeah.
Sharing, Noelle, you're A+ people. So the link is on screen. Lisa saying she's buying tickets thanks to the program. Thank you, Lisa, for saying that. We're grateful for your support. So my friend, local topics you said you wanted to hit.
Yeah, I think first, in thinking about consumer spending this year online was up substantially.
Yeah.
As expected.
To be expected.
Sort of stuck in home. I think in the holiday gift season, what I've been trying to think of is instead of going to Amazon, going out to the massive amount of local resources we have. So on Saturday, Alex and I walked from the Ix Market to the City Market to the Holiday Markets, all in one stretch, right? And you have a ton of local businesses selling great items, and as always, a lot of these small businesses, they're not selling them for near enough. They put in some of these like handmade wooden bowls. I asked the guy how much he spent or how much time he spent, and he spent 10 hours on it and is charging $40.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, that's $4 an hour.
One of the most difficult things for early stage entrepreneurs is pricing their time appropriately.
Yeah. The other one, Sweet Art Emporium in Palmyra. Did you ever connect with
No.
Erica? Okay, I'll reconnect you guys. I think she'd be a great guest on the show. Sweet Art Emporium, I bought a ton of gifts there. And it's got that Charlottesville and Virginia feel. So if you're buying gifts for people abroad, it has that great Charlottesville touch. And if you're buying stuff for people local, you're keeping the money within the community. So that was my thought there. The second thing that's been on my mind a lot is what's happening with leadership in our city. Right?
I know this one well.
Yeah, so I did have some thoughts for you. I'm very happy that a friend and colleague, Juan Diego Wade, is now on the city council. Very excited to see what's going to happen with the council in 2022. I don't follow local or global politics near enough, but I've always wanted to come and speak up at some of the city council meetings. But
you should.
This year, it seems like it might fall on deaf ears. There's a ton of, I would say, criticism of leadership that is not fruitful in a city. Like the public comments portion seems more like
antagonistic.
Ad hominem arguments, which is attacking a person instead of this is a problem. So I had a really brilliant professor that I worked for in graduate school named Jim Gates. Very brilliant. He's got his own PBS show, and he told me one time, really smart people can recognize a problem. Truly brilliant people can bring forth a solution. So I think that if I was going to go to a city council meeting, I would want to look at the agenda and say, here's something that I recognize as an issue, and I think enough people recognize this as an issue. Is this a possible solution that the city could consider? If that is not going to, I don't think in its current format that type of feedback would be useful. It's not like a show like this.
We got 5 states watching, okay, and we got a lot of folks in the Commonwealth watching. We got Cali, we got Miami, we got, which is Florida, obviously. We got North Carolina, we got Virginia, We got Pennsylvania and we got Tennessee on the feed right here. For those that are watching that aren't super in tune with what's happening locally in Charlottesville, we have disarray with local government. We have...
How many city managers have we had in the last 2 years?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. We have one city manager that is currently suing the city of Charlottesville for a First Amendment violation. In a nutshell, he got paid to quit his job by signing an NDA, and part of that NDA was, hey, you're not going to disclose aspects of why you parted ways with the jurisdiction, and if you sign this document, we'll give you nearly $250,000. And now, a year, roughly, since he inked the NDA and took $250,000 of taxpayer dollars in a knapsack bag down the interstate to Richmond and is now without a job, he is suing his former employer, saying his First Amendment free speech rights were violated. That's the first issue we have. We have a former police chief that is suing the city of Charlottesville, and she's suing the city of Charlottesville, claiming wrongful termination based on the fact that she is a woman and a black woman, and she was mistreated, and as a result deserves, from her standpoint, $3 million, perhaps in a knapsack, and perhaps she'll go to Richmond down Interstate 64, only time will tell. And we have two former city managers, and Chip Boyles and John Blair, who are named in lawsuits against the city of Charlottesville. And we have all 5 city councilors in some form or fashion that are being sued by former employers, whether the police chief or the city manager. It's chaos and the young and the restless here in local government. The crazy thing about this is we are perceived to be this world-class, innovative, beautiful, incredibly wonderful city to live in. But if you look at what's happening in the inner workings of City Hall, you have chaos. Where do you want to go on that?
I'm just curious. I think the most recent city manager's withdrawal, Mark Woolley. Yeah, I think that I looking at everything that's happening, I don't think I would want to do it either. I wonder if is all this symptomatic of is it a combination of poor leadership and systemic issues that have never been brought to light? I know that, Nakia Walker's was very
That's the mayor.
Controversial. Yeah, current mayor, outgoing mayor, was very controversial and also outspoken about some of the problems that are happening at city leadership. So is it possible that these problems, do they exist because of leadership, or is leadership's hand tied and can't really make sufficient change?
Or is it a reflection of the dynamics of the city preventing her from innovating and creating new policy? Well, what do you think it is? Or is it a reflection of her being a difficult person to be around and perhaps not the quarterback of the city?
Yeah, I think...
Because a lot of people would make a claim that she was an anomaly when she was elected. She won as an independent. When's the last time an independent has won in Charlottesville?
I don't know.
Right.
This is your...
We're talking generations here. Okay? She won as an independent, and she won on the heels of August 12, 2017, when literally Nazis invaded Charlottesville and caused deaths in our town because of their psychotic Nazi thinking. So what do you think it is?
So I don't want to make any slights against the current mayor. I will say that we need somebody brilliant in that position. I think anyone at that level can recognize the problems. I think we wanted somebody in that position who could make Charlottesville a more equitable community. Making major changes is going to take years or decades, and it seemed to me she was dissatisfied with the speed at which change happens. change that I think she was expecting does not happen overnight. And so I think recognizing the problems, I think pretty much anybody in that position could do that. I don't think that was particularly insightful of her. I didn't see a lot of solutions-oriented mindset in what I watched in her discussions with City Council, and then how she interacted with the public. What you do to impact change happens a lot behind closed doors and in City Council meetings, and then what you reflect in the public face should always come from a place of understanding and compassion, and again, trying to be the cheerleader and pull us forward. You know, airing our dirty laundry without any sort of solution sort of leaves us in limbo. We don't have anywhere to go. So
I completely agree with that.
That's what I think. What I want out of a leader is somebody who can acknowledge that there is a lot that needs to change. There's a lot of inequitable policies and practices. We know that. That's not exclusive to Charlottesville. That's around the United States for sure, almost certainly around the world. We need somebody who's going to acknowledge it, know the timeline it takes to change, and then be able to have the emotional intelligence to work with others and problem solve. And I don't think we have that in current mayors.
Okay, I'm going to I 1,000% agree with you. You said we need a brilliant person in the role of mayor. The mayor makes $20,000 a year. Why would a brilliant person take that job? You're a brilliant person. Would you run for mayor of Charlottesville? Would you? Okay, the mayor of Charlottesville is voted in by 5 councilors who are voted by the general populace. So the mayor of Charlottesville is not elected by the general
Soft
populace.
government.
It's a soft mayor. Soft mayor system. So would you run for council? You're brilliant.
I talked to Juan throughout his election process. There's a lot that goes into it. I don't think, I've only been in Charlottesville 8 years. I don't know, and I don't come from a place of really understanding all of the inequities that happen here. So I don't know if I would be a good fit for it. But if I were, it would be tough. I would have to have built independent wealth sufficiently so that I would not be looking for that as really a source of income. Yeah. So at this stage, probably not.
So you're basically saying that all the folks that can run have to be independently wealthy.
Yes, that's or yeah, you I guess have to. Your passion is so deep, and you can see a clear vision for change. I am just an amateur. I would not be good in that space. I know a few things really well, and I'm a generalist. I can look at the large scale and sort of understand things at the periphery. But you have to understand the details of every step of the way. And I think that's why people like Juan Diego Wade are going to be great on the council. He's been here forever. He understands the school board, and he understands what it takes to manage lots of competing personalities.
Andrew J. Coper, welcome to the program. Andrew, we will get to your comments. Blake, we will get to your comments. Neil Williamson, hello, and welcome to the program. Grayson, welcome to the program. Spencer, welcome to the program. Whitney Robinson, hello and welcome to the show. If you want to participate, offer your comments in the comment section on any social media platform you're watching upon, and I will relay them on air to the big-brained Lee Elberson. So 2022, bullish or bearish on Charlottesville? Because you're normally the bear.
I think I'm bullish.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's leadership. I think I'm happy with the way things are going. I think that there's enough spotlight being shown on what needs to happen that City Council is aware, and assuming we can find a city manager for the role after the search committee, then I am bullish.
Okay.
Hesitantly.
Now, why hesitantly?
Because I said that true change takes time. So I think with that in mind, knowing that true impact is going to take time, then yes, I am bullish that we will start to improve our city, and leadership will feel better. I think I saw that the budget surplus is likely going to be allocated to a good portion to employee salaries and bonuses of the city. I think that's a good idea. I think retention is huge. When you have large scale turnover at the leadership level, you want to minimize turnover at the management and senior director level as well.
Okay, so comments coming in. Neil Williamson, president of Free Enterprise Forum's got a good one. Neil, I love when you watch the show. You're a smart dude, Neil. I want to ask this question. It's topical. Does low pay and major time commitment limit the candidates for local office? Should we raise the bridge or lower the water? Basically, he's saying, do we make public office at the local level, we're talking city council, mayor of a jurisdiction, board of supervisors, planning commission. These guys make nothing. Planning commissioners make $500 a year. Board of supervisors in Albemarle County, which I'm running for, $16,900 a year. $16,900. And the time commitment involved is probably, and once you're starting, 40, 45 hours, 50 hours a week.
Okay, I didn't know it was that much.
As you figured it out, you can maybe get it to 30.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, maybe 30.
Yep.
Okay, so a guy like Lloyd Sanook, city councilor of Charlottesville, who was on the planning commission years ago and actively is involved in the Democratic Party and local government, he would say the commitment to being a counselor exceeded his expectations. He makes $18K. Mayor of Charlottesville makes $20,000 a year. Should we increase the wage to get more qualified candidates, or do we diminish the time expectations to get more qualified candidates? J-Dubs.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I think the first point is salient, but there's another element to this. I think trying to understand that, if the salary is what it is, I think the other piece to this is it's also inequitable, right? You're not going to, if you're only going to attract people who are independently wealthy, that is that's inequitable, right? You're not, people who are under-resourced aren't going to even be able to make ends meet with that in mind. So I think raising the salary would make it more equitable and, compensate people for the time, because as it is, if somebody has to hold two positions, they're only going to give what they can to be a council person or the mayor of Charlottesville. So I don't know of a way to, I think the latter suggestion, lowering the time commitment, I don't know how you do that without massive restructuring.
Yeah, well, right? I don't, exactly.
So I think the easy thing to do is to raise the compensation, and you can certainly get more qualified people, but it makes it a more equitable process.
Neil continues, he says, for what it's worth, Fairfax Board of Supervisors earn $90,000 annually. So in Fairfax County, now granted, Fairfax is a very wealthy county. One of the most wealthy counties in the Commonwealth of Virginia is Fairfax. City of Charlottesville, their counselors earn $18,000 a year, $20K for the mayor. Albemarle County supervisors earn $16,900. Fairfax Board of Supervisors earn $90K. Here's a very pointed question for you. A very difficult one.
You love these.
I do, because you handle them well. And it's real talk on this show. It's not bullshit fluff talk on this program. If local government in our hometown the pay is so meager, $16,900 for Albemarle County supervisors, $18K for city councilors. The pay is pathetic for local government officials. Are we not, because of this crappy pay, going to always get, most likely, a wealthier white person in leadership?
Yeah, that's the inequitable piece of this. I think, I don't think that's a hard question at all. I think that's absolutely true. So that is the inequity in this process. And, what was the city's budget last year? 100 and
The city, Charlottesville?
Yeah.
A little over 200 million.
yeah,
Albemarle County is a
195
little
or
over
200.
400 million.
Yeah, 200 million. So let's say you pay the councilman, $100,000 a year. That's $500,000.
Peanuts.
That's a very small percentage. That's 0.25% of the budget. So that's really not a major impact. You know, when I first heard about city council, the reason why I was asking Juan Diego Wade about it is I thought, oh, this is a side hustle sort of thing. Just in looking at the salary and looking at this, oh, this like 15 to 20 hours a week. I could commit that. This sounds like
it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. So it should
and not only is it a full-time job, but it's a full-time job where you're getting hated on by half the population.
Yeah.
Very different than a full-time job in that most full-time jobs don't have thousands of people flooding their inboxes with hatred.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am absolutely in favor, given the percentage increase and the impact to equity on paying a reasonable wage.
I'll take it a step further.
Yeah.
For the sake of a talk show. Step further for the sake of a talk show. How would you characterize the demographics of the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County? And demographics, how would you characterize them by race and a wealth standpoint?
How would I characterize? Like, what are they? Or
yeah, what are they?
I haven't looked in a while. I mean, we're predominantly white. Especially inside the city of Charlottesville, I think the statistics of what they are one thing. I think the affordability is what drives a lot of that population, and so I think that's probably the more important figure to look at is how affordable is it to live in? Is living in Charlottesville equitable?
Okay, would you say that
I'd say no.
Demographics of the city of Charlottesville are, in Albemarle County, city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County, are predominantly white, you would say?
I think that they are. I think that statistic is true.
That is
I
true.
believe that statistic is true.
And you would say above average or higher on the totem pole from a household income standpoint?
In comparison to what? In comparison to Albemarle County?
Or in comparison to household income in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state that the jurisdictions are in?
I believe that statistic is true as
100%
well.
100% true.
Yeah.
100% true. So here's where I'm going with this. The demographics of the city of Charlottesville and the demographics of Albemarle County from a wealth and race standpoint are predominantly white and on average a household income that is substantially greater than the household income that's the average of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So are the folks elected to office not a reflection of the voter base?
Yeah.
Is this exactly what the voter base wants?
This is a good question, and I think one of the really great things that's come out of the last year is intensely focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusivity in all of our decision-making processes. And so, yeah, first recognizing, is leadership of the city of Charlottesville representative of the people that live in Charlottesville? Let's, for the sake of a talk show, let's say that is true. If that is what we desire, then there's going to be less voice, and we work on a majority, then there's not really going to be a majority voice speaking for the under-resourced individuals. And we, I think, have as a community said that we want more equitable practices in the city of Charlottesville. We want more equity in all of the processes, and so that should probably be over-reflected in our leadership. I don't know if it makes sense to keep it equally representative, right? To say this is 80% of the demographic is this, then that 80% should be represented on the city council.
Donovan Fiore?
Fiore, yeah, he used to work for Claiborne. Yeah, he still is. Your
homie?
Yeah, he's a friend of Claiborne and a friend of mine.
Lives in Gilbert, Arizona. He studied at Washington Lee University.
Mm-hmm. Really smart dude.
Girlfriend who went to Washington and Lee University, had a great time there. Donovan says any ideas on incentives for this kind of position mayor and city council be on salary that would help bridge equity. And he says, great conversation, you too. So I have some ideas. Ideas could be beyond salary that are similar to compensation, would be a City of Charlottesville issued vehicle, would be a City of Charlottesville issued cell phone plan that the city covers, City of Charlottesville issued home internet. You're doing a lot of your Zoom and Skype council meetings at home. A City of Charlottesville issued healthcare package of some kind.
That's a big one. That's several thousand. Everything else is like
hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Not much.
Retirement matching package.
Yeah, that's great too.
None of these happen.
Yeah.
With elected officials. They're not getting matching 401k, 4% match on 4% contribution. They're not getting subsidized health care. They're not getting, they may be getting, in fact, I think they probably are getting City of Charlottesville cell phone. They are not getting City of Charlottesville drive home vehicle. I would hope to God if these council meetings are happening or requiring them to log in to participate from their living room at their casa at home, that their home internet is subsidized in some capacity, or probably what's happening is they're given some kind of super deluxe hotspot to utilize while doing those Zoom meetings at home at the crib.
Here's a question. What about, I mean, given the nature and the types of decisions that they have to make, do they have assistants, executive assistants?
No.
City council?
Their council, City of Charlottesville Council, has a council admin that is for council in totality and not individual councilors.
I mean, that would be a big part of, if you're trying to attract talented individuals and people who are going to be able to make these executive decisions, you need an executive assistant to help them curate the types of materials that they need so that they can do it effectively.
Definitely.
So I think that would be the biggest thing. I would say increase compensation. I don't know, throw out a number, $75,000, $80,000 a year, and an executive assistant and the compensation package that you mentioned. I think then you're going to attract people who are going to dedicate their entire life to the city. Not that the current council members don't want to, they're just limited by having a side hustle.
Money.
Yeah, you have another hustle basically.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go down that road. If we increase compensation at local jurisdictions, what is the collateral damage of a career or lifelong politician? I'm going to pick his brain on lifelong politicians and the collateral damage associated with increasing pay with local jurisdictions and elected government. Mark McKinney, who's watching in Crozet, a Crozet Community Advisory member, he says Charlottesville, 70.6% white. Mm-hmm. Albemarle County, 81.8% white. Crozet, 93.6% white. Mark McKinney, median household income, Albemarle County, $79,880. Charlottesville, $59,471. Crozet, $81,875. Good data from Mark, smart man. Come on the show before. He says, Mark McKinney, persons in poverty, Albemarle County, 6.7%. Charlottesville, 24.1%. And Crozet, 3%.
That's the more important figure. The median income is only as helpful as you know the median cost of living in that area. So I think what percentage of the population falls between the below the poverty level, that's a better measure. So that's a great statistic.
Neil Williamson, most electeds have the opportunity to participate in their locality's healthcare plan. I did not know that, Neil Williamson. No. I'm typing in Facebook, is it a good healthcare plan for them? If you could give us that answer, we will relay that on air. Here's the problem I see, and I'm going to get out of your way on this. In fact, your perspective, your experience, your marriage to the beautiful and talented Alex is going to help you answer this question. Charlottesville and Albemarle County, and in Central Virginia, really in totality, are quickly, and it's been happening for the 21 years I've been here, I've seen it expedited, are quickly becoming this playground for wealthy individuals. It's expensive as all get out to live here. If you want to buy a crib in the city of Charlottesville or Albemarle County, you're most likely looking at a crib for a starter home that's going to have a 4 in front of it, or early 5 in front of it. And that's just ridiculous demand, very little supply. You are seeing UVA continue to produce obscene talent, and that talent staying here. Wait till we see the impact of the data science school. Okay, the data science school is going to be world class, and we're going to be producing brilliant minds that are 21, 22 that choose to stay in this town and get 6-figure jobs. We got new employers opening all over Charlottesville and Albemarle County, and these new employers are bringing in people from outside the area, and those people from outside the area are making bank, and they're buying bricks to live in. That's just exactly what's happening. I have said this so many times. The invisible hand of capitalism is a momentous beast. It has like ridiculous momentum behind him or her. I don't see this town 5 or 10 years from now being any more affordable. I'm about to get out of your way. Any more affordable, any more approachable, any more diverse. I don't see this town being any more equitable. I see this town becoming, if you make 6 figures, and you better make a fair amount, you can live here. If not, you're out of luck. Prove me wrong.
I can't. I 100% agree with what you're saying. I don't think there is a way to stop that. You know, it might be helpful to reflect on other cities that maybe have done this. If you look in Silicon Valley, you know, San Francisco's got tremendous poverty. The homeless population there, I think, is one of the highest per capita in the entire world. So I think that if that's a reflection of what happens when you inject lots of capital and you start to, you know, hire high-end talent, then the restaurants and the houses and all those prices are just naturally going to elevate. To create a more equitable, I mean, equity takes intention. And so it just probably means that we're going to have to be that much more intentional about making sure that we stay diverse, equitable, and inclusive of all people. I think that, you know, what did you call it? The arm of the
invisible hand of capitalism.
The invisible hand of capitalism, I don't think cares at all about equity. In fact, she is the least empathetic. You say the least empathetic person in the room. No, she's a lot less empathetic than I am. A lot less empathetic, and yeah, I think I 100% agree. And so, you know, with that in mind, if that is our future, you know, what can we do now, knowing that that is going to happen? We're not going to. Or should we do anything at all? I mean, if we don't want our society to be more equitable, inclusive, or diverse, then we shouldn't do anything. I think I said equity takes intention, and we have to be intentional about it. If we want to, we know data shows that more diverse perspective always yields a better result. Homogeneous feedback always yields less results. So we know, at least from that perspective, that we want to have a lot of differing perspectives, and we want diversity. And, you know, it's sometimes tough to battle with, but I want things to be more equitable. I don't want to look and think, wow, I did so well because I just got an extra bump every step of the way. You know, I'd like to feel that pride in its fullest extent and say, yeah, I worked hard, and so did everyone else. And, you know, if I got something as a result, then it's because I maybe did it better, not because I got a little bump every step of the way. Lee Elberson, our guest, CEO of Claiborne Education. I'm torn on this topic, and I'm torn on this topic because
So many reasons. I'm torn on this topic as a father of a 3.5-year-old. I'm torn on this topic because of the effort I've put into growing these businesses and the sacrifice made and what's given up to do it. Obscene sacrifice. I'm torn on this topic because I do want balance and diversity in the community for so many different reasons. I think of my son first in a lot of ways, and I want him to grow up in a diverse environment. But I'm also torn on this topic because when I was launching these businesses, I remember the obscene amounts that I gave up over these 13 plus years. Taking one vacation in 13 years, 90 hours a week was the norm for 10 years of those 13. Working every day while my friends were going to the bars, going out, having fun. It was, working. And it's like the student loan conversation where I have friends who are hoping and fingers crossed that government is eventually going to eradicate their student loan debt. And then I have other friends, including me, who worked his way through college at a Ruby Tuesdays, literally, to keep debt down. I'm like, how's it fair that your student loan debt could be eradicated and you get a free pass? You get the $200 to pass go, just because the government waved this magic wand and said, you don't have any more debt, any more student loan debt. Okay? Where everybody else had to either pay off their student loan debt or had to effing work through college to keep that debt down. How is that fair?
I want you to hold that wand for the rest of the show, Jerry.
I will
love
gladly
that.
hold
Okay,
this
great.
I have, you have a magic wand behind you if you'd like one.
Okay, I might want to use it.
And you also have what's the hat? Is it Gandalf's hat over there? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. A couple of things to unpack there. I don't think I see where you're going with the student loan conversation. I think, that probably speaks, I think everybody votes for their own self-interest. You make decisions based on what's going to benefit me the most. There is obviously you want to be empathetic and you don't want to hurt other people, but I think that might be more of the student loan argument. I still have student loans. If they forgave them, I would love that. I think the piece you're talking about working hard, I think I've thought about that a lot too. And it's tough to grapple with it because it seems like the conversation last year is saying, you didn't work hard. But that's not, after I've been thinking about it, I've been thinking about it quite a bit over the last year. Nobody is saying that you and I didn't work hard. They're just raising the fact to say, if you pass, if you were a black male, it's very unlikely you would, with that same amount of work, you would have ended up where you are now. Is this system one that do you want to keep that going? Do you want to help perpetuate that? We know that's a fact. It's unlikely you'd get a loan, you'd be able to start a business. Is that a system that you want to perpetuate? For me, no, and I think for you, no.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so
definitely no.
It's not to say again that we haven't worked hard. It's just that the system is designed that we get a little extra bump, and trying to level that system is going to take decades. And we need to start doing that now. And I think you and I both agree on that. So
yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah.
But what I have trouble with is here's $200 for passing go without rolling the dice. That's what I have trouble with. Here's the free pass across the board without throwing the die and doing the work.
Yeah, I'll make the argument to you. That $200 is not. It's in the grand scheme of things. If you give severe tax incentives to a group that was marginalized, it takes a tremendous amount to pull even an individual family out of poverty. And so I think those sort of systems giving people money. I think that's you're trying to. Here's an analogy. I think I mentioned this last time. It's the babies flowing down the river analogy. Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like this analogy.
So
it's a good one.
the,
Blake, we'll get to that great comment
so
here, Blake.
the babies flowing down the river, I think it's a fable, says, you're in a community and you see these babies just floating these baskets down the river, and it's like, oh my gosh, we have to start taking care. So we have to figure out how to take care of these babies. And at some point, somebody says, wait, no, we have to investigate and go figure out where these babies are coming from and why. Both of those strategies need to happen. And so I think in order to make things more equitable, the analogy is that trying to offer people incentives and offer them that cash, as you say, without doing anything, is a way of taking care of the babies. Like, oh, there's something wrong with the system.
Was it baby Moses and his sister Miriam?
That could have been it.
That was floating down the river?
Yeah, that could have been it. And then, trying to change policies is sending the team downriver. That was a great. I went to the C&E class on.
What's C&E?
Center for Nonprofit Excellence. Any nonprofit in the Charlottesville area should contact them. Their staff is amazing. Christine Nardi does an awesome job. I think you've had her on the show before. She does a great job leading that organization. So anyway, that was one of the fables that came out of that. And so that's what I think of when I hear you saying things like that. I will say, let's curtail this conversation. I did say I crowdsourced a bunch of different topics.
You do.
We haven't gotten to hardly any of them.
Well, we got good feedback, and the viewers and listeners are responding well here. So Twitter, LinkedIn, and DMs, I'll get to you here. How about this one? This is from BH.
God, it's good.
I like you, BH. Blake Hawthorne. Cali, right?
Yeah, he's in Woodland.
Okay. It's not fair, but the world that the next generation is inheriting is nowhere close to the one it was 10 to 15 years ago. The opportunity for home equity and ownership, the cost of living, surviving and trying to get out of the never-ending debt and fewer chances to succeed is not a viable option for the future.
You're talking about student loans? Is that the...
I think he's talking about, Blake, you're talking about student loan debt. You're talking about the barrier of entry of buying a first-time home, which is a wealth generation builder, is much greater now than it has ever been before because we're under inventoried across the country, and because supply is low and demand is high, prices have escalated. He's talked, I'm paraphrasing, and I'm reading between the lines and using context clues. I believe he's referencing the transitory nature of inflation. Groceries are more expensive than ever before. Thanksgiving's the most expensive Thanksgiving on record. Disposable income for the marginalized Americans is fewer than it's ever been. Those that are living on the financial periphery, yeah, have less disposable income in their purses and wallets than ever before. That's safe to say.
Definitely. To use your analogy against you, I would say the invisible arm of capitalism has just crushed the middle class. The wealth gap and where all of the wealth lies in the world and in the United States is due to utilizing capitalism to ensure that you take more wealth away than anyone else. What I've been thinking about a lot is this concept I'm
about to jump in here.
Yes, is getting wealth, is gaining wealth an equitable process? I'm arguing no. And so here's the analogy I've been thinking about a lot, and I might have brought this up on the show before. You got 10 people, we're all sitting around this board table, and then you have 10 plates of food, okay? And you say go. And then I go and I say, oh wait, there's not any food for me. And somebody says, well, I'm trying to get enough for me and my family, right? Like, oh, I understand. You're trying to take care of your family. So the analogy is you're trying to gain wealth to take care of yourself, or maybe there's the argument that the money's better in your hands than someone else's. But in the end, the money is all ending up with one person. That food is all in one, and some people are left at the table. More and more people now are left at the table with no food at all. I think that's in large part due to capitalism. And you can make the argument that there's the billionaires' agreement to give back their money, but there's a tax on that. Billionaires don't live in $200,000 houses. They buy big yachts, and so there's a certain amount of money that they spend on themselves before
but those
they
big
give that money
yachts
back.
and those big houses have property taxes associated with them
That's
that
a
are
small
then
percentage.
allocated to create equitable
Sure.
endeavors.
So like they say, hey, I took $1 billion from the economy, but you're getting $100 million back. Well, what about the other $900 million? All that money is not going back. It's not like they take that and then it all goes back. They're utilizing part of it, right?
You are heading into the gray area of socialism with this
Sure.
with this
For sake of a talk show, fine, let's do it. But like
this is socialism.
Yeah, but so do you think that the analogy of like
or communism,
capitalism sort of doing away with the middle class, do you have anything to refute that claim?
I think I will agree with you this. I think the pandemic has been an MFer. And if
it's a family show. I don't know what that means.
It's been a kick in the
really
cojones, okay, for the middle class and the lower class. And I think this pandemic and COVID has undoubtedly increased the wealth gap in America. The haves have more and the have-nots have less. Look at education in private schools and kids in private schools learning like it's no COVID at all. And that's a stretch a little bit. Obviously, they're doing preventative maintenance, mass distancing, and school has changed. But they've learned, for the most part, in person, where public school kids are learning through screens or a hybrid setting, and it's very different. Yep. We're both in agreement there.
Yep.
I think this pandemic has undoubtedly impacted the middle class, lower middle class, and the lower class at an incredibly unfortunate clip, and certainly at a much steeper frequency than upper middle class and upper class and the 1%ers.
Yeah.
Okay? But the individuals that hedged appropriately, they may have not known that there was a pandemic coming. None of us did. But there's something said to be said for having cash in an account for a rainy day. There's something to be said for innovating, I hate to use this word, pivoting, most played out word ever, pivoting your skill set for survival in a pandemic. I mean, it's Darwinism. It is Darwinism. The strong survive and the weak get slaughtered. It's Darwinism. The pandemic was microscopic Darwinism.
Yeah, I guess to use this is pretty fun. I like when you come up with these analogies. I guess in this analogy, you know, if you are affluent, you are the sort of woolly mammoth, or you're the top of the food chain here. Like if you rewind 100,000 years, and everybody who doesn't have resources is the piddly little.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're saying
yeah.
if you're wealthy, you're the lion, or the crocodile, or the hippopotamus.
I would say that, like, I understand the idea of pivoting, and I understand the idea of setting a rainy day fund, but you're leaving out an entire portion of the population that doesn't even have that option. And like
Lee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Like that argument doesn't go for everyone.
Okay, and I hate to bring this up.
Okay, let's
13 years ago, they're responding well. 13 years ago, I was stealing food from Chinese buffets to feed myself and my dog. I went to the Panna Garden buffet on Emmett Street and literally had no money for food for me or my dog. And multiple times I went to the lunch buffet with empty Ziploc bags and scraped the food into Ziploc bags, and that was my food for dinner and my dog's food for that evening. So not having the resources or the gumption or the hustle or the chutzpah to make shit happen, I'm not as empathetic to that plight, because I was the guy who had to steal food. I've slept outside in between leases, slept outside.
I think I would agree that you're exception and not the rule. I would not ever refute the fact that you are an exceptional businessman. I think I would emphasize exceptional. I think what I'm trying to bring forth is that is not an option, and that is not likely, and not a likely outcome for everyone, even if they tried to follow in your footsteps exactly. That's the argument I'm making.
You made it happen.
Yeah, and I would make the same argument that like I wouldn't expect that. I mean, I had a lot of luck. I think there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong, and so I think that we probably are the exception as opposed to the rule.
What are your thoughts, viewers and listeners?
All right,
put them in the feed. Okay, go ahead. Blake says 100% correct, Jerry. Deep thoughts. Adam Smith, Neil Williamson. Go ahead, Lee.
All right, so to switch things slightly, I do have to, this is kind of like a Patreon shout out. I asked Scott Williams what he wanted me to mention. He was like, don't forget to mention he has a winter break camp, December 27th through 30th, Camp for Real.
I love you, Scott Williams.
Yeah, Scott Williams is awesome. Really interesting article somebody sent me about education. We should talk about education for a little bit. There was an article in the New York Post about eliminating advanced math courses for the sake of equity, and a large outcry nationally about if this is not the way to achieve equity, is getting rid of like advanced math courses.
Or like Charlottesville City Schools, 86% of the school system is considered gifted.
Well, that's a slightly different thing. So I did some deep digging. Thanks. I actually couldn't remember who sent that to me. I think that story was slightly sensationalized. They weren't getting rid of math courses. I think if you're going to get rid of like math courses and say, hey, here's how you make things, here's how you reduce the achievement gap, get rid of the high-end courses, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I'll state that. That's not what was happening.
That's gentrification of education.
Yeah, that's not what was happening. I think what the Department of Education was recommending that students limit AP courses, which I think is a good thing. Students who've taken 4 or 5 AP courses end up getting burnout. They're a lot higher risk for mental illness. So I think making that recommendation is a good thing. I think what they were trying to do is move to a more equitable policy, because if you look at the outcomes and the outcomes aren't reflective and you're only getting a certain demographic come out of the advanced math courses, there's some inequity built into the system. So obviously it's the theme of this is thinking about inequity. And so I believe that's what was trying to happen in New York. And we talked about this last time with Jeff
Perlman.
Jeff Perlman, awesome dude.
Yeah.
Trying to make systems more equitable. If you notice that it's inequitable when you try to make a change, I think it's great that the school system is trying to make it more equitable. I do also appreciate from a parent's perspective, hey, my student is trying to get the most out of their education, and that's the sort of balance that we need to find. So I think that helps resolve things. And then somebody asked, is this happening in Charlottesville? No, all the research I did, they're not taking any AP courses off. They're not removing any honors classes. They're changing the structure of how students are leveled. There's going to be a learning curve here, and I think that is going to be temporarily problematic, but for the long term, I think it'll be a good thing.
Okay, so I'm going to throw this to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a topic that we have 7 folks from 7 different states watching the show. The governor's race in Virginia. Glenn Youngkin versus Terry McAuliffe. In a lot of ways, that outcome of the governor's race in the Commonwealth of Virginia is a purple state that often leans blue, Democratic.
Yeah, and historically goes opposite of the previous presidential election.
Exactly.
When it happens off, right.
Okay, so well-read individual here. So McAuliffe lost this election. He asked me to keep my wand in my hand, so I'm doing that. McAuliffe lost this election because of his comments on education. McAuliffe said, and then he doubled down and then he tripled down, that parents should have no say or influence in their children's educational curriculum. I'm a dad of a 3.5-year-old. If someone said that to me on this show or on the squash courts or at the bar or the brewery, I would give them a mouthful back. I'm going to have, as will my wife, and I don't want to speak for her, I never do, we are going to be very active participants in our child, we have 1 kid, in our child's education and curriculum. Okay? Mm-hmm. For McAuliffe to say that parents shouldn't have a say in what their kids are learning, I was offended by that statement. And I think many voters in Virginia were. Hence why Glenn Youngkin is the governor-elect. Here's where I'm going with this.
This is good because I got a couple of bones. I'm going to play devil's advocate on
start.
a lot of
Let's
these
go. I have a feeling I know where you're going to go.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the governor's race. I don't think that's why McAuliffe lost. I think what's happening right now, what happened in the gubernatorial race in Virginia is likely what's happening nationwide. The Republican Party is doing a much better job of inspiring voters right now and getting people excited, getting their voter base to go out and vote.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I think that's why that's what happened. I think
McAuliffe made two fatal flaws.
Yeah,
the educational comment and also the comment of associating Youngkin with Trump.
Yeah.
The Trump stigma is lessening. And it's having a lower or less impact on voters than it did when shortly thereafter of Trump being in office.
Yeah.
Okay? And Youngkin, when it comes down to it, is much more of a centrist or moderate than Republicans of even 5 or 10 years ago have been.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
I agree with that. I also think that the Republican Party has the advantage of when you're trying to polarize views, I think it helps to come from a conservative piece because when you're trying to protect a value system, you look and you say, this is the value, this is what we're protecting, don't let them take this from us. When you're on the Democratic side, you're trying to protect more social views. It just doesn't polarize voters in the same way. So I think that was one element. I think the second piece, I think his McAuliffe's PR person was terrible.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have made that comment. What he should have said...
You're talking the education comment.
The education comment.
And then doubled and tripled down on it.
Yeah, I think that... So here's what I would ask, because I do this quite a bit. You should participate and you should encourage your student. What qualifies you to make curriculum decisions? If I come to you and I say, hey, Jerry, I've been doing this for 20 years. There's a curriculum designed to put your child on the track that you want. Do you want to change that, or do you want to listen to an expert?
Are you asking, you're asking genuinely, or for the sake of a talk show? Or
yeah.
You're asking me, as the father of my son, what qualifies me to make educational decisions? Curriculum decisions on my little boy? My response to that would be this. I spend the second most time with him on the planet. My wife spends the most time. My response to that would be, no one knows my son better than I do, except for my wife. We're fortunate that she's a stay-at-home mom. My response to that would be, I read books, my wife really does, to him every day, in particular at night. And we see the nuances of how he learns. And because we spend more time with him, because we're reading to him more than anyone else, and we see how he is learning, especially as a 3.5-year-old, when the material he is learning is still very digestible and approachable for us as parents. It's not like it's calculus, right? He's learning his ABCs and his 1, 2, 3s, and how not to pick his nose and keep his hands to himself right now. That's what he's learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So because of that, we should have a say in what he is learning and how he's learning.
I guess I would wonder, like, if the education system is spending all of this time developing research and saying, we've done, pedagogically speaking, this is the curriculum.
What does that mean?
Pedagogy is the study of education and the benefit of education. So this is going to increase the outcomes of your student. I would say that what you're doing is you're participating and encouraging your student. I think that's a great thing. To nitpick and make to go against the advice of experts.
Critical race theory?
Well, you're all over the place. I think if the research is showing that this is going to maximize outcomes, as a parent, if you want to change things, I think just want to understand that you might have the best intentions, but you don't have the experience or the data to say, hey, if I make all of these different decisions, this will increase the outcome. It'd be like buying a car from a lot and saying, I'm actually going to just go and tweak this myself. That's perfectly fine, but you can't expect it to perform in the way that the dealership says. And just the way that when education experts say, the curriculum is this way because we think this maximizes outcome. As a parent, the best thing you can do is take that and say, so here's what they're doing. Let's make small little changes to that. I think any major deviations from that, I think you would be taking a chance. And not to say like any one incident, if you say, I don't want you to read this book, I want you to read something else. I don't think that changes it, but every step of the way, I would defer to experts, as I often do. I'm not an expert on squash. I play squash. I know my play style, but I would go in and say, this is how I play. What do you recommend? Okay, cool. I might make some last minute changes, but that's when I'm asking about what qualifies you to make curriculum decisions, not opposed to what qualifies you to be a good parent and encourage your students.
Would you say a curriculum decision would be a parent insisting that their child take the advanced track of classes as opposed to the not advanced track?
Yeah.
You would say that's a curriculum decision?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So mom and dad say, little Jerry, big Jerry, and Mama Miller said, little Jerry, you're going to go APs across the board. Your teachers are saying that this is too much of a workload, but you're going to do APs across the board if you want to play sports. Is that a curriculum decision that the parents are impacted?
Definitely.
Okay. That happened to me. How about this? Big Jerry and
your
Mama,
parents forced you to take
APs across the board.
Yeah.
No doubt. 100%.
Yeah.
Force is the wrong word. Strongly encourage, which is synonymous with extortion, okay?
Yeah.
Strongly encourage. They said, you're going to be taking the SAT every year from 7th grade on. And some years, when you get to high school, you'll take it twice. Is that a curriculum influenced by parents?
I think that's a recommendation, and that's something that I would say education experts, these are case-by-case basis. I think in general, most education experts would not encourage pushing that hard. But if a child is responding well to that sort of that feedback and that motivation, then yeah, they would continue to push them. In my perspective, that's a minority of the student body that reacts well to that sort of pushing.
I would model the experiences our little boy is going to have after the experiences that I suffered or enjoyed through.
I think the experiences, yes. I think, again, it's making recommendations on specific curricular decisions. Again, you put your child in the school system. If you don't trust the school system, then I guess then you should make all the changes that you see fit. If you do trust the school system, then you should trust the process and just motivate and encourage your student. And it sounds like what you are doing, you and your wife are doing for your son, that's all the stuff you should be doing, because the school system is doing their thing, and then you're actually doing extra on top of that.
Comments coming in. How do these curriculum decisions impact equity, and is homeschooling a viable option?
Homeschooling is a viable option, definitely. I think homeschooling works really well when you have one working parent and you have another parent available to do the homeschooling. So that in itself probably limits the families that can do that. But yes, I've known plenty of homeschool families that come through Claiborne, and in terms of what the students are learning, the education, when done right, it's different. Here's one of the struggles with homeschooling. So, not to say that you as a mother or a father couldn't make curricular decisions that would give your student the aptitude to do well. The problem is if you ever try to inject them back into the system, which is likely going to happen, you're going to inject them into the college system. There is going to be a struggle there at the moment, or about a year when you go to inject them into the system. So that's the
struggle.
Problem. So if you're going to homeschool, I think just before,
make sure you socialize your kid.
It will definitely socialize them, but right about junior year, you should start talking with some educational professionals to make sure that they are ready to start in the college environment.
Yeah,
that would be my recommendation. Otherwise, I think homeschooling can have a ton of benefits.
It reminds me of the super strict parents. I love the show with Lee Alberson. It reminds me of the super strict parents that were so strict when it came to their son or daughter with drinking, with booze. And mom and dad had such a heavy hand when it came to their son or daughter with drinking while in high school. Okay? That when that heavy hand disappeared because their son or daughter went to college, then their son or daughter went off the deep end because they were so under the thumb of their parents when it came to, for example, drinking. And then next thing they know, they have the freedom and they go bananas. It's like the son or daughter that's homeschooled that is not in a setting with a lot of their peers and parties, then they get put into college, they don't know how to respond or adapt or react.
They may not build the emotional intelligence necessary
EQ.
To interact in society. Yeah,
my friend has got IQ and EQ off the charts. Cindy, you did well with this individual lead. All right, so why don't
do we have any more time? Are we done?
We do. We do have a couple more.
One thing that Blake did mention to me when I asked him what he wanted to talk about, he talked about the mental health epidemic, and just as I do, just pulled up some statistics. I'll have Judah put them in the show stats. National Mental Health Report, I did one thing, and then Blue Ridge Health District, again, another plug, had their own mental health report. So in terms of some interesting statistics, 60% of youth with serious mental illness do not receive assistance. I think the takeaway there is trying to encourage youth that we live in a very stressful time and it is okay to ask for help. The illusion is that all these people do well and they don't have any help. Jerry's got an entire team behind him. His wife supports him all the time. Judah supports him in the studio. He's got friends that support him. So he's got all these support structures. It's okay to ask for help, and you should. There is a similar statistic. 50% of adults with mental illness do not receive treatment. 11% don't have insurance. That's another interesting stat. And then something I wanted to correlate that with, because last year the increase was about 30 to 40% more people claimed that they had mental health illness during the pandemic. Is this a coincidence? I think not. Stats for social media. In 2019, the average person spent 156 minutes a day on social media.
156?
156 minutes.
You know how many hours I spend a day on social media?
You're the outlier. We already know that. Thank Malcolm Gladwell for that. 2020, 189 minutes a day. That's like a 20 or 30% increase. Here's a pop question for you, Jerry. Your son, let's say he lives to be 100.
Okay, knocking on wood.
How long will he spend on social media?
Over the course of that lifetime? Mm-hmm. Well, do we know what social media is going to become?
Let's assume that it keeps on in its current trajectory. Let's assume that it doesn't get worse. That it doesn't do more.
You're the math genius. I'm going to have to bust out my
calculator. Just take a guess.
I would say 2 times, I'm going to do the year first.
Just take a ballpark guess.
2 hours times 365 would be 730.
Okay.
730 times, we'll call it 90. We'll say he's not on social media. We hope to 65,700 hours.
Yeah, it's about 10 or 11 years.
Okay, so 65,700 hours. How many years is that?
Let's forget like that. Yeah. So I think the takeaway on this article was that your son will spend 10 years on social media. That is just shocking to me.
That's shocking. Okay, I will counter this, and this is a topic for another show. And you're right, Mr. Larkin, we did not bring up that topic. Mr. Larkin says the last time Lee was on, not the last time with Mr. Prillerman, with Teacher Prillerman, but the time before that, you promised us that you would talk about the influence of everyone on the block powering their electric vehicles, and you have not brought that up today. Okay, so Mr.
Bring
Larkin.
that up next time.
I
apologize
to you, Mr.
Yeah.
Larkin.
Here, I'll make a comment.
We got to make a comment about that. He said, I remember that now, after he's commented on that. Do you remember that?
I do remember that comment. I do say that the grid couldn't handle it right now, but we didn't go into details.
That's what you said the last time you were by yourself.
Yeah.
So Mr. Larkin is saying we did not cover that topic.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Larkin.
Keeping us honest.
He
That's good.
is keeping us honest. That's what's great. He's referencing a show from 2 times ago.
That's great.
Okay, 2 times ago. I want and we'll get to Cindy Elberson's comment in Louisiana, your mom's comment here.
It's not about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is it?
No, it's about parents and their influence on education. Okay? I think she disagrees with you.
Sure.
Which is fair, which makes the show great. So as parents, our natural instinct is to say to our children, cut the screen time. Put the screen down. You're using the phone too much. You're on the computer or in front of the screen too much. Should we be saying as parents, expedite, increase the screen time and your interactions with the smartphone or the computer? Because the entire world is heading to this direction and you will be ahead of the curve.
Without hesitation, I would say no. Don't say that. It increases your chance of mental illness. Did
Mr. and Mrs. Gates tell little Bill, stop building computers?
I think it's dangerous there's a fallacy of like comparing the outliers and trying to generalize based on that. I'm glad Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos did what they did, and that's great. But I think that's a very small subset of what people do. And they built businesses that make them a lot of money. Those businesses are predicated on trying to drive us to do more of the behavior that they want us to do.
Did Mr. and Mrs. Grisham tell little Johnny, stop creative writing so much?
Yeah, but that creative writing was not linked to increased mental health illnesses in individuals. Screen time has been.
Okay.
So that would be why I say that.
That's fair. Cindy in Louisiana.
One more thing.
Yes.
Alex did say, are we breathing life into Barracks Road with the excitement about the new Brazos location? I say yes.
Yeah.
I don't go to Barracks really what do you go to Barracks for?
The Virginia shop.
The Virginia shop is great.
Tiffany
yes.
Smith.
Great spot to get gifts.
Yeah.
So
we love you, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say Brazos is good for Barracks Road. 100%. Why don't we close on this? We got a 3 o'clock show coming up here. I believe parents in a community are absolutely entitled to have a say and influence in curriculum decisions, not only because they know their children better than anyone, but also because there are too many social variables outside of basic education, math, reading, science, that can conflict with what parents may be teaching at home.
I mean, it's tough to be an education expert and to say I don't disagree with parents should be able to have a say in open forum. I think parents should focus on what they want the outcomes to look like and leave the decisions about like what is the most effective way for that to happen.
How are your parents involved when you were growing up?
The argument of picking one individual and trying to generalize the base, I don't think is a great argument, but my parents were loosely involved. I developed a love of math and physics, I would say not at the behest of my parents. They created a great environment for me and encouraged me and supported me, but they didn't say you have to study calculus, you have to do this. My mom always supported me and said, do what makes you happy and do what you enjoy doing, and that happened to be physics and math. I think the public should say this is what, and parents should say, this is what I want the outcome of my student, or my child to have. as an expert of the millions of papers that have been released, what is the most effective way to make that happen? In your opinion, let them execute on that. And then guess what? The parents can still tinker in the background, but I think that is how the process should work. One parent coming
Cindy
up
was
and
on the
saying,
school board.
wait, what?
Yeah, she was on the school board for one term.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm communicating with her.
You learn something new every day. I did not know that my mom was on the school board.
She was on the school board, and she said she was extremely involved.
Yeah. Having a leadership position like that and listening to all the comments, again, it's tough to listen to individual comments from a parent and try to design curriculum based on that, because every parent is speaking self-interested. Like you said, you know your son better than anyone. Everybody knows their kid better than anyone else, they would claim. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are qualified to select curriculum, like every single piece of curriculum. I would argue, even homeschool, the most effective homeschool parents do their research and they follow guidelines from Saxon and a bunch of different producers. So anyway, that's all I'll say. Not that parents shouldn't be hurt. Parents should continue to encourage, but I fear that we enter in a part of society where we say we don't care about what science and the experts and research says. Everyone's going to make their own individual decision. I'm going to do my own research.
We'll close on this. Great show. He's just great to do a talk show with. Blake says Jobs did not let his kids have an iPhone. Just saying, Jerry. I appreciate that,
Bam.
Blake.
Thank you for that, Blake.
In California. Well done, Blake, on that. Matthew is saying, along with the topic of the grid being crowded, if everyone on the block charges their cars at the same time, please add to the list stock market investing as a topic for the next time Lee Elberson comes on.
It's a better topic. Alex, can I have Alex Erpy as my guest?
You could.
You call it, yeah.
No rules here. No rules here. You got to touch base with your mom after this show.
Yeah, my mom's, I'm sure, is going to be like, how dare you say that? Yeah.
Touch base with your mom. So we love you, Cindy, on the program.
How about this with parting? Jerry, you got the magic wand. What do you hope for Charlottesville this holiday season?
What do I hope for Charlottesville this holiday season? Stability with elected officials. Stability and consistency with elected officials is what I hope for this holiday season.
I hope that everyone gets a chance to spend time, genuine, non-screen time with somebody they love and have in-depth conversations. That's what I hope, based on our conversation today.
Lee, I love that.
What?
You just crack me up. He's a good guy. Can't you tell he's a good guy? He's just a good person. Genuinely just a very good person. My friend, what's the rest of the day have in store for you?
I have meetings and sessions. I've got a lot of students right now. Kids are wrapping up. I've got a lot of calculus students right now. Oh my gosh, I was telling Judah I have to teach like 5 hours of calculus tonight.
Do you enjoy the calculus?
I do. I love it. The problems are so sophisticated and you never see the same one twice. And so, yeah, I love that part.
Why don't we get a photo of Lee on set? Can we do that? Looking sharp, J-Dubs? Judah Wick-Harris is going to get a photo of... the mic is good right there. Do you want to hold the wand up?
Boom.
Oh, there we go. Lee Elberson holding the wand up right there. He's the CEO of Claiborne Education. He's a friend of the program, all-around A-plus guy. We love when he comes on the show and offers his perspective, because our perspectives, we do it in respectful fashion, are often very different.
Definitely.
And that makes for good talk show material. Tomorrow, we have the Thursday edition of the I Love Seville show at 12:30. Today, Y Mañana airs at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. Alex and Xavier Erpy do a hell of a job showcasing investing and markets and trends in the Latino community at 10:15 a.m. Thursday, tomorrow, on this network. At 3 o'clock, we have our animal focus show. And Lee Elberson, you did a hell of a job today.
Boy, it was a tough show.
Did you have fun?
I had a great time. I guess what I was thinking, here's the wording I would say. Do you have the right to make decisions in your child's education? 100%. Still debate on the qualified piece. Right? Yeah,
We'll agree to disagree on this
Sure,
one.
yeah. Okay.
And why we have to agree to disagree on this one from my perspective is there's nobody that knows the kid better than the parents. And that intimate knowledge of knowing your son and daughter is the foundation for any influence on decision making with your son or daughter in any capacity. Mm-hmm. No one knows a kid better than their parents.
That's true.
And because of that, the parents should have a say in anything the kid does.
Definitely.
No final word?
Okay, there is a final word.
I know there is.
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say the final word is that it is ultimately up to the parent. If an expert says, statistically speaking, this is the likely outcome, and it's always the parent's decision to say, do I feel strongly enough that this course correction is right enough that I'm going to
supersede the teacher?
Supersede what experts and statistics are saying. And I think that is where
that's a mistake I'm willing to make.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a mistake I'm willing to make.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where the right comes in. You have the right to do that. I think you should always listen to the expert and try to pull yourself away from the situation. I think sometimes what I see with parents in education, it's like the little puppy, they're squeezing it so hard. It's like, okay, just let go for a second. They're actually doing great. Just give them some breathing room. And also sometimes get their feedback. At your son's age, it doesn't make sense. But like when they're a teenager, get their feedback and say, what do you hope the outcome is? Tell me what you hope the outcome is in 2 years. If they say, I don't know, then you should probably stay at the driver's wheel. But you should always encourage your student to be more proactive in making their own decisions.
Lee Elberson, fantastic on a talk show, CEO, Claiborne Education. Thank you, my friend.
Always love being on the show, Jerry.
Same.
We're going to have to talk about EVs. I'm going to have to do a lot of research about EVs in the grid.
Well, and what was the other topic?
Oh, man, there was tons of them.
Trends in investing that you've identified.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely do electric vehicles. We'll keep trends on investing on the fence. Judah, thank you, my friend. Job well done. I know we ran long. I appreciate you. Thank you to Lee. My name is Jerry. This is the I Love Seville show where we have very frank conversations, guys, on the internet, and it lives there forever. You guys have a good afternoon. We'll see you in 44 minutes on our next show. Take care. Good job, dude.
J Mill, man. That was a good one.